Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here at the Spartan Rocketry Club, and I am continuing my build of the Estes Sentinel. Yes, this vintage kit from some time ago. So, in any event, it is time. In this video, I'm going to install this baffle. And while I'm doing that, so this eye hook here, this is going to be where the recovery system mounts. So instead of using the Estes tried and true mount right here, we're going to mount it deep inside the rocket. Now there are nice advantages to this. One is that, well, it's less likely to get snagged because it's going to be farther in. The other is that, well, it's got the baffle, so that's going to be nice to have as well. Now, if you're going to mount this deep inside the rocket, the disadvantage is that if it breaks, you can't get it out, basically. It's not, this is a permanent feature. So, yeah, there's some disadvantages, but I think they're worth it. Now, again, I don't have the elastic cord that came with this kit originally, nor would I want to use it anyway because it is ancient in the extreme. So instead, I have some Kevlar thread here that I use. This is a pretty solid replacement for shock cord in general. So I'm going to get, I have a lot of this, right? And there's no harm in having a lot of shock cord, right? There is no drawback to it. In fact, it's probably a good thing. It means it's more, or it's less likely rather, that the nose cone is going to smack up against the body and damage it on the way down. So I'm going to unspool, and here's the rocket. I'm going to unspool somewhere between like 2 and 3 times the length of the rocket. So there's, it's like, oops, yeah, it is kind of coily. This is a minor pain to work with sometimes, to be honest, because it is, well, it recoils on itself pretty readily. All right, so I have, this is a good amount, right? This is somewhere between 2 and 3 times the length. Maybe I'll do another turn. That's great. All right, I'm going to cut it with my scissors. This stuff doesn't really like to cut. So, yeah. There we go. Yeah. I mean, it's durable stuff. That's why I'm using it. It's not completely fireproof, right? So you could, in theory, damage it with an ejection charge. But considering that the baffle is going to take most of the abuse, this shouldn't be an issue at all. Now, there are definitely people who want to do like a hybrid recovery system here, so they use the shock cord, or this is the like the anchor point of the shock cord, and then they use some elastic for the last bit of it to provide some springiness. That would also be a downside to this. It's not going to have much spring to it. That shouldn't matter too much with a rocket this size, so I think we'll go with it. This stuff, by the way, you can get it in a whole variety of thicknesses. This is, actually I forget, it doesn't actually say on the tube, but I'm not entirely sure. This can support pretty much any small rocket that you can throw at it, right? If you wanted to go any bigger, if you wanted to go mid-power, you should probably get something a little higher gauge. So I'm going to do the usual business here. I'm going to tie several knots into, yeah, that's part of the problem. It has a preferred direction because it's been on that spindle for a while, so I'm going to have to break it of that. Anyway, I'm going to tie a few knots in here, and then I'm going to put a dab of glue. I think I'm just going to use wood glue just to set the knot, basically. Now, you could certainly use CA glue to set it. I don't think there are any drawbacks to doing that. Just trying to think if, I don't believe I've seen any warnings about using CA glue on this stuff. I suppose it's possible there could be, but I am unaware of them. Alright, so that's been tied a few times. Yeah, it slides like this, but knot here really shouldn't fall apart. It's pretty tight. Alright, so I am going to put a dab of glue just in this to kind of set the knot. And we'll let that sit for a moment. All right, I am going to install it in this video, but I want that, yeah, that's actually kind of loose. That shouldn't be a problem. I mean, the knot itself isn't loose, so we'll let that sit. Anyway, we're going to install that, but glue sit for a moment. While that's waiting, I am going to break out my thin line diagram here. So we'll cut that out and we'll do that part, since this is a reasonable thing to do in the intervening time while that glue sets up. Obviously, I'm not going to let it set the whole way. That would take way longer than this video. And hopefully I'm not going to jostle it too much in the process of installing the thing. Okay. Alright, so I need some tape. Usually I use clear tape, but I have masking tape at my disposal right here on my desk, so I'm going to use that. Doesn't really make much of a difference. Don't need much. Just tear that in half. Alright, so this is going to go on the body tube. I'm going to take the nose cone off, at least for the moment. I'm, again, leaving the nose cone in there to try to reshape the part of the tube that got a little bit crunched. Alright, wrap it around and match the lines up. There we go. And the pencil. So I'm going to mark off, there should be 4 lines on this, plus the launch lug, which is right at the junction point. I don't know why they chose to do it this. Oh, I know why. Because you're supposed to cut this out to use as the anchor for the shock cord. I guess that does kind of make sense. Normally you would expect this to be like in between some of the lines, but I'm guessing there is no spot that would be in between that you wouldn't cut out. But even that, I mean, that seems kind of silly. Alright, so there we go. All my lines are marked. This then I'm going to use a door jamb to extend the lines. And this, they're going to have to go, well, I'm just going to extend them the whole way down the rocket. They need to go pretty far because these fins go like here-ish, and I do need a launch lug as well, which is going to be kind of in the middle of those, I believe. Alright, now, a moment of truth. Well, not really. There is some risk in installing this next bit, right? I very much want to get it kind of centered in the middle. I mean, I don't want it right in front of the motor because then this thing isn't indestructible, right? It's designed to take a beating. This is pretty tough wood. If you were actually really concerned about this, one thing you could do is you could break out some epoxy and make just the tiniest little batch and just smear it along the outside of this. And if you do that, then you're basically making an ablator. So the epoxy, when it takes the heat punishment, it's just kind of flake off instead of getting to the wood. There is some danger that the wood, I mean, the wood's wood, it's flammable, but it's not that flammable, right? A little tiny bit of hot gunpowder is not going to set this on fire. So, something to consider. I'm not going to bother. But in any event, I want to get it about halfway up the body. I want to leave plenty of space up here for the chute and all that stuff, and I want to leave some space between the engine where it's going to go off and where it's going to hit this bulkhead. The other thing that's going to be a minor problem is, again, this part of the tube is a little deformed and it's not easy to get in that side. This side goes in, I mean, it's snug, which it should be, but it goes in pretty nicely. So what I'm going to end up doing, this is going to be where the motor goes in, right? So I'm going to end up threading the thread, it's actual thread, through the body tube, and then I'm going to push this up to get it about, halfway up the tube. That means I need to get glue inside of this about halfway. So here is my wood applying dowel that I typically use, halfway. And I could break out a ruler, I suppose, if I really wanted to, but I'm just going to kind of eyeball it I am actually going to measure where I want how far in the dowel I want to go, and I'm going to say about here, like this far seems about where I want to put the glue. So I'm going to apply glue to this, and I'm going to stick this in to my mark and spread it around. Now, the one other thing I need to think about is how I'm going to actually get this in, because I can only reach, my finger only goes this far in, so that sure isn't going to cut it. What I ended up doing, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to use this big old wooden dowel. This, you can see it's colorful. I use this for painting. It just so happens to be the diameter of, well, not that part because there's an engine blocking way, but it happens to be the diameter of a motor. And that is, this is pure coincidence, right? This thing used to be a part of a toy bin that my kids had, and then we replaced it with something better. But it just so happens to be, pretty sure it's 18 millimeters, right? It's the same size as a motor. Whether it's 18 millimeters measured inches, I don't know, but it's somewhat immaterial. It was pretty nice. It's very convenient. I use these for painting, so whenever I paint a rocket, I just shove the stick into the motor mount, at least for 18 millimeter models, and it's it's a nice firm fit, so then I can paint without getting my hands messy or any of that stuff. I always do get my hands messy, but less messy. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to push with it. It's quite rigid, so it should do the trick. Somewhat fingers crossed on this, but I'm pretty confident. All right, so let's give this a go. We'll worry about that in a little bit. Let's get the glue in this first. So I'm going to get some glue here. Hopefully, that might be a little light, but we'll go from there. All right, there's my mark. I'm actually going to load up the glue and then figure out the mark. Now I want to be careful about not getting glue close up, so I'm going to try to keep it upright for a while until I get pretty far into the body tube, and then I'm going to paint it. Okay. And unfortunately, this isn't great cinema, of course, but I'm looking down the barrel of the rocket and I can see the glue, because the glue is shiny, even though it's dark in there. It is plenty shiny, and I can see where I've painted and where I haven't. Now I can see a couple glue spatters near the end, so I must have brushed something on the way. That I definitely need to clean up, because if I leave glue in there, I'm going to have a really hard time getting the motor mount in. Alright, so that was just about perfect when it comes to the amount of glue. So it's all painted up. Let's deal with that cleanup now. So maybe you can see it. Yeah, there it is. I need to clean that out. So I'm going to put my paper towel in here. Just try to clean it as best as I can. Yeah, that's pretty good. Looks pretty good. Alright, now everything else, so that glue is starting to set. I need to do this somewhat quickly. I need to get the thread through, because it needs to be pointed up, right? And this is actually somewhat difficult to thread. Go figure. You could certainly tie it to something small and try to thread it that way. That's actually not a bad idea. I probably should have done that. Here's a paper clip. Paper clip's heavy enough that it'll fall through. I'm just going to twist it around the paper clip. There we go. Pull it through. Alright, and now in. Okay, it's in. I need my pusher, and it should start to resist. Oh yeah, I can feel it resisting right now because I've hit the glue. I'm going to look And I can actually feel it because it's more rigid than the tube. It's right about here, which is pretty much where I want it. Let's see if you can take a peek. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'm pleased with that. That should be in far enough. Take a look at the other end too. You can see that. It does seem to be about halfway. And that'll do. All right. So that's great for now. I could really go continue this like straight in and put the fins on, but I obviously need to draw the marks, and I think I'll let this rest for a little bit. Probably don't need to, but I'm going to. All right, so thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.